Okay, real quick, informal video. What I'm doing is screwing up and hitting the wrong thing right off the bat. There we go. I want to do just a real quick video on services. There are different services that can run on your computer. An example of services would be like Apache, your web server would be a service. Email would be a service. There's all different kinds. Time, setting up your time protocol, that's a service. Lots of different things. Anything that somebody would request from your computer, and sometimes just stuff running on the computer itself that's running all the time. Usually these are the old, we used to call them terminate and stay resident programs, or a daemon is the terminology in Unix. It's something that's going to start and it's going to run all the time. Okay, so those are their services. Where they are is a directory called etc init.d. Okay, like initialization. And when you see a .d on a directory name, it usually means here's a whole bunch of files that are all run at the same time or run in the same way. They're all related. So in this directory we have about 77 files. And look at some of the stuff that's in there. HTTPD, that's a favorite. That's your web server. Bluetooth, if you want Bluetooth running. There's probably not a lot of reason for Bluetooth to be running on this machine. Kudzu is something that runs to look for new hardware. SSHD, we just got through talking about SSH, and SSHD was the server end of it, and that's that. So each one of these, let's notice right off the bat, what color are these files? They are all green. That's an easy question. What does green mean? If you'll notice all those X's, green must mean executable. So that's what they are. They're all scripts is what they are. SSHD is not the SSHD program itself. It will call the SSHD program. Let's just take a look at that guy. I'm going to use Vim just so I get the pretty colors. SSHD. This is a script that pretty well documented. It's going to go through, tell you what it uses, and it's going to run some stuff. All this is over our heads, not even worried about it, but I'm just showing you that it sets up stuff. Okay, this is significant. If it says start, what it's going to do is make sure its keys are there. It's going to copy something, and eventually it's going to try to run the SSHD program itself. Sometimes you have to look through these to really get what's going on, because different functions can call different functions can call different functions. But anyway, that's what's going on. You've got start, you've got stop, reload, okay, status. What those are different things that you can feed the program. And let's see how that works. If I say // it's in this directory, so SSHD status, it tells me that it's running and it gives me the process ID. So that's cool. If I say SSHD stop, I've stopped that service. Notice the little funky green arrow, the green OK. If you're watching, you get a whole bunch of those when the machine starts and when the machine stops. So that's what's happening, is it's starting and stopping. Now that it's stopped, I can say status again. It stopped, and I can bring it back by saying start. So start, stop, and status are three things that you can hand just about any of those scripts. And it just does things or tells you about something. Now I'm going to hop back to my personal home directory. Since I'm root, my home directory is /root. So to do that, to call that, I would have to say etc init.d sshd status. Okay, that's kind of a hassle, isn't it? Having to type that in anytime you want to do something. Yeah, so you can say service sshd status, and it does the same thing. The only thing is this is very Red Hatty. I try to warn you stuff that's not going to carry across. If you sit down at a Solaris box, that may work. Stands a pretty good chance. Don't think the service command is going to work. If you sit down at an Ubuntu box, service probably not going to work. Although it's so cool, I think a lot of people have implemented it, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. Just a alias service equals It may not work with an alias, but anyway, you could configure something really easy, like a little script to call it. It's not hard. So anyway, that is starting stuff and stopping stuff right now. It either stops right now or it starts right now. Tells you what it's doing right now. This doesn't have any relationship to whether or not it is running when the machine boots. I can say service HTTPD status. It stopped. I can say start. Now it's running. It takes up a bunch of PIDs. If I reboot the machine, would that be running? No. Well, it's actually kind of a loaded question. It may be, it may not be. Okay. So service is temporary. It's immediate but temporary. Okay. What if we wanted HTTPD to start at runtime or at start time when the thing boots? Before we jump into that, we have to talk about run levels. And I'm going to introduce you to a file right now. If we go to, I'm going to say vim, etc init tab, the initialization table. And this is actually a really cool file to know about. INITTAB. And again, I'll use vim just to show you about it. Most Unixes in general have run levels. There are a few that don't. But anyway, run levels, think of this as a state that the machine is in. And there are 6 of them. The first one, if you were at run level 0, the machine would be stopped. Run level 1 is single user mode. Have you ever had to boot into Windows in safe mode? That is roughly equivalent to your safe mode. 2 is not used that much. 3 would be full multi-user mode, but X isn't necessarily running. You don't necessarily have a graphical user interface. If I were running a web server or some kind of dedicated server, probably wouldn't want X unless I specifically said I want to use X right now. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't use X. You just have to start it manually with the start X command. Then you've got X, and then you can shut it back down and you're back to just a text prompt. 4 is not used. 5 is what we're normally set at. The machine comes up and boom, it sticks you on into the graphical mode. If you kill X, X comes right back. If you're in 3, if you kill X, X just dies and he's happy with it. 6 is reboot. Okay, so there are your 6 levels. They don't build on each other. You don't have to go through 1 and 2 to get to 3. They're just 6 different separate states. They could have just as well named them Fred and Barney and Dino or ABCD, whatever. etc init tab. There's different stuff that's set up in here too. Right here, init default, your initialization default. What level do you want to be at when the machine starts? You could set this to 1 and the machine would boom, pop up in kind of a safe mode all the time. Not real handy. If it was a web server, you'd set it to 3. If it were a box like we're using, it would set to 5. Usually this gets a good giggle. If you set it to 0, the machine would come up and then immediately shut right back down. Similarly, if you set it to 6, the machine would come up and immediately reboot. Sit there and just loop. Boom, 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 boom. The reason that you would have that is you can also go to one of these run levels. I can say init 3 or init 0. The other day we did an alias for power off, and I typed in power off and it said no, you can't do that. I'm like, I forgot I did that. So I said init 0. You can also do tell init 0, and that would shut the machine down. So tell init and init are the same command, roughly, and they just switch you to a different run level. There's some more stuff in here. One of the things that's kind of neat is these are your different run levels. Okay, you can see there's 6 of them, so that makes sense. It's saying at level 3, it's got a wait command, okay, whatever that is, and then it's going to run etc rc.d rc3. Okay, still talking about run levels. I'm going to go ahead and just hop out of this file. What it's talking about is going to etc rc.d, and in this directory, notice there are more directories, and there's rc 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think rc stands for run command. I'm bluffing on that a little bit. Anyway, let's look at rc3. If I say cd rc3.d, now you've probably guessed this probably has something to do with run level 3. ls-l. These files are all, make it more dramatic, these files are all blue. What I just got through showing you when I threw that -l in there is they are actually links that point to, what do you know, that main directory we looked at a minute ago, that etc init.d. Remember the scripts that start and stop stuff? Cool. Let's look a little further. There are 2 different kinds of links in here. They all are either an S or they're a K. S is start and K is kill. So depending on what you want running at level 3, some stuff will be running, some stuff won't be running. The stuff that's running are all going to have S's with them. And notice you've got a number too. Stuff has to start in order. You would want to start TCP/IP before you started your web server. You'd have to. So some stuff is going to come real late in the startup, and some stuff's going to start real early. S00, they wanted that to come in immediately. Microcode control. That sounds pretty low level. And some stuff is going to be kind of late in it. Update with yum. Once everything's running, everything's going, then do your yum update. Okay. Similarly, you also have all your kills. Kill Bluetooth near the end. Kill DNS masquerading at the beginning. So all this stuff gets killed. So it would make sense if I go to rc0.d and do a listing. Am I going to have a lot of S's or a lot of K's? RC0 was shut down, right? So they're all K's, except for 2 S's that look kind of suspicious, halt and kill all. Everything's going to be started. And if I go to rc5.d, it's got a whole bunch of starts. That's got lots and lots of things running. Okay, that's what, just to go back again, vim etc init tab does with all this stuff right here. That's what these are doing. This is saying if you are in run level 2, go to the etc rc.d directory and run everything in the 2 directory. So the stuff that needs to be killed, if it's already running, you kill it. The stuff that needs to be started that's not running, you start it. And that's where that's controlled. But anyway, those are run levels. Here's the long and short of it. Those are run levels, and that's what they mean. So take one service like HTTPD, the Apache service. You may want it running at some levels, not want it running at other levels. So how do you control that? Well, on other systems, you have to go in and monkey with those scripts. That is a major hassle. But Red Hat has always been really good about this. There's another command, chkconfig. This is kind of Red Hatty too. But I can say chkconfig --list, and notice what it shows me. It shows me every one of my services that were in that directory, and notice I've got 6 lines, 6 columns. Very noticeably, zeros are all off, 6s are all off, so that should kind of make sense to you. Run level 0 is shutdown, run level 6 is reboot, and then between the two, some are on, some are off. So you can dig through these. Again, kind of a hassle. What if I wanted to see just HTTPD to see what its settings are? What would I do? I hear it now. grep for HTTP. It looks like my web server never comes on. Do you see how I'm getting that? All I'm seeing are offs. Okay. To turn something on, you can say chkconfig HTTPD is my service on. And I'll do my command again. Now on, what it does is it turns the service on at 2, 3, 4, and 5. The most significant being 3 and 5. So those guys right there just came on. The other ones have to stay off. You could monkey around and turn it on at run level 1, but that would be kind of silly. Similarly, I can turn it off. And now it's all back off again. This is the way you control whether or not a service is started at start time. So if I wanted HTTPD to be running at start time, I would do that. So now I know my default run level on this machine, I'll show you here. Vim etc init tab. My default run level is 5. When this machine boots, it's going to go to run level 5. So at run level 5, right now HTTPD is on. So this machine is going to start HTTPD, the web server, at start time. And even if I switch to the default run level to 3, it's going to come up. So again, to look at all of them, I'll do more. You can see all these services and when they're on and when they're not on. A lot of times you can go through any service you don't need and you know you don't need it, turn it off. Just as a general idea. Any service that's running that you don't need is just another hole for somebody to come through. One more thing to get exploited, and just one more hole in the wall. But some stuff you've got to have. So there's all my services. You can do funky stuff with chkconfig and make it say, okay, I just want it at 3 and 5. You can dig through the man pages for that. I'm going to pause the video so we don't take too much time with this, but I'll do some documentation real quick. Okay, here's my little bit of documentation. We've really got 2 commands. Service, start the service. Well, actually, I guess you should say starts. It starts, stops, or does something with a service, and they have to be found in etc init.d in that directory. So you have service sshd start, or service httpd stop, restart, or status. I didn't put anything out from those because they look pretty self-explanatory. chkconfig sets stuff to run at run levels. You've got your list and a list with grep to see a specific service, because this is rarely useful by itself. There's too much information comes spilling through. chkconfig service on or chkconfig service off. Now the trick to this and the points I want to make is that service, this is temporary and it's immediate. chkconfig is not immediate. If HTTPD is running or is not running, I'll say not running, and I say chkconfig HTTPD on, would HTTPD be running then? No. It doesn't start it. It just says, okay, next time you boot, or next time the run level changes, then start it. Or check the list and see if it needs to be started. So so I can edit this, I'll stop the video again just a second. Okay, I scratched those in, but if I say service something, it's not going to affect what happens next time it starts. Common problem is I will tell students to configure a web server, and they'll go boom, 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 and do all the complicated stuff. And then what you can do is if they reboot the machine to do something, and the machine comes back up again, if chkconfig wasn't changed, their web server doesn't come up. And then it's not working. They try to hit it with a browser, and it doesn't work. So that's one way to screw it up. Another thing is to put it in chkconfig and realize that you never started it to try to test it. So generally, if you're just troubleshooting or just want to use something just for a few minutes, you just do service. But generally, you use them both. If I'm going to go to the trouble of setting up a web server and making it run, I'll start it while I'm figuring things out and getting it set, but also I need to go ahead and do the chkconfig to make sure it comes up next time. So these commands get done in conjunction, unless you're just running through and shutting stuff off with chkconfig. Like, I don't need Bluetooth, I don't need wireless on this machine, I don't need and turn a bunch of stuff off. Okay.